Um, Want to say welcome and thank you for being with us here today to the Empowered for Change channel. I am Deborah Gilbert White, also known as Dr. D, your host. Here we celebrate and encourage people who are and who seek to make a difference in the world. We also explore and seek to better understand how one's life's journey can prepare you for your life's purpose. And so today we welcome Marita Golden, author, professor, consultant, literary titan, mentor, and friend. Hello, Marita.
Hi, Deborah. Thank you for the invitation.
Oh, we're so honored to have you here with us today. I'm going to read your bio, and then we'll get started with our conversation.
Not
Marita,
too, not too much.
I know you have a lot going on. Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, I kind of made it a little shorter, but it captures who you are. Marita Golden is a veteran teacher of writing and an acclaimed award-winning author of approximately, maybe more than 20 works of fiction, nonfiction, and anthologies. As a teacher of writing, she has served as a member of the faculties of the Master of Fine Arts programs at George Mason University and Virginia Commonwealth University, and in the Masters of Arts Creative Writing program at Johns Hopkins University. As a literary consultant, she offers writing workshops, coaching, and manuscript evaluation services. As a literary activist, Marita co-founded and serves as president emerita of the Zora Neale Hurston Richard Wright Foundation. And we are so honored and pleased to have you with us here today, Marita.
I'm
Welcome.
glad to be here.
Okay, so let us get started. As I reflected on this time together with you and how we first connected, I am amazed at how life unfolds in ways that sometimes we cannot even imagine or know until at some point we are able to connect those dots. I first became aware of you through your book that you wrote titled Don't Play in the Sun, One Woman's Journey Through the Color Complex, while I was doing the literature review for my dissertation, focused on skin color privilege in the African American family. Decades later, I would connect with you as the manuscript consultant for my memoir, Coming Out of My Experience with Homelessness.
Hmm.
And when I started to write that book, I saw it as an advocacy piece. And so, as we prepared for our time here today, I was thinking about how the power of the pen can be so helpful in the things that we find important in the world today and in our lives personally. What brought you to writing, and when did you recognize the power of the pen and know you could make a difference through writing?
Well, I was one of those little kids who was always daydreaming and writing poetry, scribbling stories. I think I sort of came into the world to be a writer.
Mhm.
I had all of the traits that writers have, a lot of curiosity, a lot of imagination, and a willingness to sort of interact with the world and to create stories that entertained me and stories that entertained other people. So I had all the qualities. So I just was always writing.
Mhm.
And probably when I was in college, that's when I realized that writing was very serious business and that you could make a living writing.
Mhm.
And I was, I had a column for the school newspaper at American University, and I wrote in my column a critique of the Black Panthers, and I was basically critiquing what I felt was, a strain of sexism in
Mm.
the party. And about a week later, some Panthers came up to the campus looking for me, and they didn't find me because the other students sort of protected me. They suddenly had never heard of who they were looking for. Um, but at that point, I learned that writing was very serious. That there could be a price to be paid for
Mhm.
what you wrote, um, and it didn't scare me at all. in fact, probably made me want to write more.
Mhm. Well, you have been called a literary titan, and rightfully
Who
so.
said that?
I read it in one of the bios about you. And rightfully so, with the number of books you have written, edited, and guided toward publication. Your book, The Strong Black Woman, touched a nerve for many of us for multiple reasons. For me, it brought to memory my grandmother's, who lived with her life, taking all kinds of things from all kinds of people, different kinds of people, to the point where she seemed to have measured her strength by the emotional and physical pain she endured.
Mm,
Yeah,
mm,
to me, it seemed that she was proving how strong she could be with all that was happening
right,
to her and around her. And so
right.
that's the image that I grew up with. How would you say your book has redefined what it means to be strong?
Well, I think my book is part of a movement. In the last, I'd say, 20 years, women, Black women
Hmm.
specifically, have been interrogating the idea that they have to be super women, they have to always be strong. And so I actually began writing the book during the pandemic, and I had kind of a health scare
Hmm.
that led me to think about my own definitions of strength. And I knew I had a story. And so I went on the internet and I did a little research and found that there was a growing and evolving conversation among people in the medical field, mental health, and just ordinary Black women about the fact that, we're tired, we're ready to sit down, we're ready to take a break,
Hmm.
and that we have the right to take a break. And so I saw all these articles and all this conversation and wanted to become part of it. So the Strong Black Woman is part of a growing canon of books that are being written, interrogating the idea of the Black woman as superwoman,
Hmm.
and the idea that Black women always have to be strong. And I'm seeing that younger Black women are sort of already there.
Hmm.
They're much more willing to say, um, that to set boundaries. That's
Hmm.
a big word with people nowadays. And so I think there's a lot that we can learn from them as well.
Hmm. So as you have conversations with people around this book, around that particular book, because I want to explore some of the other books you've written as well. What stands out for you? You mentioned about the younger women being able to set boundaries and say that they're not going to follow down the path of generations before them and trying to be not take care of themselves. Is there a strain where there's the self care piece comes in? As women are beginning to redefine what it means to be strong?
Well, the thing that my conversations and presentations have shown me is that it's very, very hard.
Mm-hmm.
That this idea that we are supposed to be strong all the time and that we have to put ourselves first is almost a part of Black women's DNA. And so learning how to put yourself first, learning how to say no, is
Mm-hmm.
something that really is very, very hard for a lot of Black women, because their sense of identity, their sense of value, their sense of strength comes from everybody depending on
Yeah.
them solving everybody's problems, even to the detriment of their own health. But even as it is very hard, I do see more and more women going in that direction, and developing either individually or in groups the vocabulary to say no, to say I'm putting myself first, to say do it your darn self. Um, so it's both a challenge, but it's also a challenge that is being met.
We went out for a moment there. Maureen, are you back?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay. Yeah, I went out as well. Okay. So you were in the midst of talking about putting
Yeah, I was just
yourself first.
saying that this is a vocabulary that is very hard to develop. But even though it's hard to develop, more and more women are going in that direction of self-care, caring for their mental well-being, and
Mhm.
learning to put themselves first.
Yeah, some of the conversations I have had and some of the things I have heard have been that, no is a complete sentence.
Right.
We've been so used to having to explain ourselves or feeling the need to explain ourselves when no is a complete sentence unto itself. So thank you
And the
for that.
other thing is that Black women don't just get this from the home environment, they get it in the work environment. Wherever
Yeah.
Black women are, everyone expects them to overachieve. And they sort of buy into that. It's a double-edged sword, so that you overachieve to prove that you're not the negative thing that white society says you are, but then the
Hmm.
overachievement makes people think you can do anything and everything. But
Hmm.
we're getting there. We're getting there more than we were 10 years ago, for sure.
Yeah, and I think also that we have to get there because, like you said, it would be to our detriment not to. It would be. How would you say that your books, such as A Woman's Place, the anthology Us Against Alzheimer's, stories of family, love, and faith, and How to Become a Black Writer, creating and honoring Black stories that matter, serve as advocacy efforts for Black women, Black families, and Black writers?
Well, A Woman's Place is my first novel,
Hmm.
and it was inspired by my own experience of having lost my mother and my father when I was in my early 20s, back to back, and finding that in friendships with women, I could create surrogate families. So it's the story of three young women who meet in college and their decades long friendship. And so friendship with Black women, sisterhood with Black women became a very early way for me to find and create family.
Hmm.
Um, Us Against Alzheimer's is a book that I pulled together. It's an anthology of writings from caregivers who are caring for people with dementias. And I had been researching a novel, The Wide Circumference of Love, about a Black family living with the patriarch of the family living with dementia and the impact that that had. And while I was interviewing families and individuals, I found that even though it is a very, very hard job to care, to be a caregiver for someone with dementia, many of the people that I talked to said that as hard as it is, they had found new dimensions in their relationship with their loved ones. They had found new ways to love them. And I was so moved by that that I wanted people to write more about the
Hmm.
multiple dimensions of caregiving, the horror, as well as the the experience of opening yourself up. So that was advocating, for caregivers. And what was the other book you said?
How to Become a Black Writer.
Oh yeah, well that's my literary memoir,
Mm.
and I write about it's called How to Become a Black Writer, but it's really anybody who wants to be a writer can read the
Mhm.
book, and it's a memoir, but embedded in it are lessons about how to be curious, how to be dedicated, how to work hard, how to be ambitious. And it came after a celebration that was of me and my work that was held at the Martin Luther King Library here in Washington, D.C.
Oh, okay.
Kind of a Marita Golden Day, shall we say.
How long ago was that?
That was in 2023,
Oh,
December 7th, 2023.
oh.
And I was so moved by it. I even got my flowers before I die, And I was so moved by it that I really thought that I had never really written extensively about my career. And I had a 40-year
Hmm.
career. So then I I said, well, let me see where this takes me. And it was very satisfying to write about my career as a writer, a teacher, and an activist. So it's
Mm-hmm.
a book that is inspiring to people who want to write
Mm-hmm.
because there are obstacles that I overcome. There's lessons learned. And so I write about writing books, teaching books, helping other Black writers on their journeys.
Mm-hmm. And you have exhibited that, periodically. I've been one of the people to be honored and to also um, be blessed to be in your presence when you gather the Black women writers in the community together, often at your home. And that was very eye-opening for me, being new to this area at that time, and having my first book, and just to be able to connect with other sisters in the community. And so I appreciate that you do that and have done that. And what would you say that some of the people who come to you for consulting and consultation, and who are taking your workshops, what is one of the main things that they have, or they struggle with in telling their stories?
Probably believing that they can actually tell their story,
Mm,
uh, believing that they have inside of them all the intelligence, the creativity, the imagination, and the dedication that is required to write their story.
mhm,
I'm finishing up working with a group of Black women who've been working on their memoirs, and we've got probably another 2 weeks. And one of the women came into the group, and when she first heard the writing of other people, she was so she felt insecure. She said, "Oh my gosh, I'll never be able to write like that." But over the time that we've been working together, she's become a very, very skillful writer. And often, many writers are afraid to write about their deepest feelings. And as readers, we bond with vulnerability, weakness, overcoming obstacles, hard feelings. And in this workshop, this 8-month workshop, several of the writers really grew in courage, the ability to say, I hurt, um,
mhm,
I was wrong, I made a mistake, whatever shows
mhm.
vulnerability in their writing. And it creates a space in the story for the reader to enter.
And I have experienced that through your leadership, when um, when you gave me feedback on my manuscript.
Mhm.
I tell people you made me cry because you told me to go back. You shared with me that I had did all these things and I had outlined them nicely in the book and the manuscript, but you wanted me to go deeper and deeper into myself. And when I sat down and did that, yeah, you made me cry.
Yeah, you haven't written, and like there's a lot of fear around writing, and
Yeah.
fear is justified, is to be expected, because you don't know where you're going, you don't have a clear roadmap, you don't know what people are going to say, and very often you're writing about things that are painful, and you really don't want to go there if you can avoid it. But
Hmm.
a story that will have power and authenticity requires that you go there.
Right. And you were so right because when after I got your feedback, I rearranged the chapters in my book to
Mhm.
tell the story because some things needed to be said before others, and so that was so helpful in getting that book to the publisher. So thank you so much for that.
I mean, and I think there's a really good book called "Writing as a Way of Healing" by
Mm.
Louise DeSalvo, and in the book she writes about how we all human beings have a right to write. We all human beings should write, and many of us must write, and that the writing process is actually healing. They've strapped
Mhm.
people up to wires in their head into machines, and they can see they can see how the right side of the brain, the left side of the brain
Uh-huh.
work as we're writing a story that is difficult, but that has the power to heal us. So writing, so when we say writing is healing, that's not just a theory, it's a scientific fact that it can be
Hmm.
very powerful healing.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. I know that many of us take up journaling and have do journal. Are you a journaler?
Occasionally,
Yeah,
occasionally.
yeah, me too. I need to get back to because I agree with you that when I journaled, that was a way to process things that were happening, personally and professionally in my life. So I think I
Yeah,
will get back to it as
yeah.
well.
But journaling every day, I don't need to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But at a certain times I need to write so I can understand. Yeah. Hmm.
Hmm. I can relate to that. I can. Please share about the October 17th Hurston Wright Foundation event, any upcoming workshops, and what you're working on now.
Well, on October 17th in Washington, D.C., the Zora Neale Hurston Richard Wright Foundation will celebrate its 35th anniversary and also its annual awards program and dinner ceremony, where we honor writers who have written the best books in fiction, poetry, nonfiction, and debut fiction.
Hmm.
And we also honor members of the community who have distinguished themselves as scholars, activists, writers, cultural influencers. And this year we're going to be honoring Mary Frances Berry,
Oh, yes.
formerly of the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights, and who's
Hmm.
written about 13 books for her commitment to civil rights and human rights. We're honoring Dr. David Levering Lewis, who's a fantastic scholar for his years, his 70 odd years of scholarship, writing about Black history, everyone from W.E.B. Du Bois to Martin Luther King. Dr. Brenda Green, who was the founder of the Center for Black Literature at Medgar Evers College in Brooklyn.
Hmm.
And we're also recognizing Dr. Henry Louis Gates with the Founders Award because when the organization was started in 1990, in those early years, he was crucial in providing um, advice, input, guidance um, that helped us get off the ground.
Hmm. Well, it sounds like a very interesting, very impactful lineup, and all of those people have contributed so greatly to the culture. Yes. I
You can
will.
go to www.hurstonwright, HURSTON like Zora Neale Hurston and Richard Wright.org,
Mhm.
and you will see information about tickets and everything.
Okay, and what I will do also when we finish with this segment, I will share that information in the edited version, and people will be able to follow up with that and get tickets for the event. So thank you for sharing that with us. Finally, I would like to ask you: is there a question I did not ask that you would like to answer?
Um, well, I get asked a lot, what advice do I give to writers,
Hmm.
people who want to write?
Yeah.
And I think there's one of the things is that you have to realize you have to write. You can't think about writing. You can read about writing, but you do have to write. And a lot of times, writers will say, "Oh, I have all these ideas. I have a million ideas, and I just can't choose one." And I tell people, choose the one that scares you the most, the one that frightens you, that you couldn't possibly imagine yourself writing, because that's the story that has the most to give you, the
Mm.
story that will force you to grow as a writer. And the other thing, it's important to be in community. Create or find a support group because you'll learn from other people and you'll realize that your struggles are not yours alone.
Well, thank you so much for that advice and for your input and for our time here today. I want to say to our folks who are looking and watching and will be coming today and in the future, to like our channel, to subscribe, and to share this information with others in the community that you think might be interested. And so again, Marita Golden, literary titan, mentor, friend. I thank you so much for being with us here today and for the wisdom that you have bestowed upon us. and we look forward to sharing your information with our audience in the coming day. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Deborah.